Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain DOM events, or you call it as HTML events. So an event is an action usually caused by a user that a web browser responds to. It is nothing but an action that is being triggered by the user. For example, if the user click on a mouse, or if the user presses a key, or if the user, let's say, hover over mouse. You would have seen many times when you're looking at some images, and when you hover the mouse over the image zooms in or zoom out, right? So such kind of event are triggered using some code, okay, in JavaScript, and that is what we call it as DOM events. Okay, we use event listeners and event handlers to implement that. Let's understand it with an example. So I'm gonna first comment this. Now let's understand it with an example. So this is an HTML page that I'm going to create. So let's create a very simple HTML page first. And let's see. So herein, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button. Okay. First, let's create an HTML element. So I'm in an HTML page. Right. So here in the body of the HTML page, I'm going to create a button first. I'm going to say button. I'm going to give an ID to the button. I'm going to say btn. And herein, I'm going to say on click. Okay. So on click is the event that will be triggered when I will click on a button. Okay. We're going to see what are the list of events that you can use. Okay. But first understand the basic implementation. So herein, I'll just call a function. Let's say bdn click. Okay, is the name of the function that I'm gonna call. Okay, and because it is a function, I'll just surround it with the opening and close. I'm not surround, but will be followed by an opening and closing parentheses. And I'll click a button. So I'm gonna say click me. Okay, what did I do? I just created a basic button. Okay, now when I press on the button, some function will be called. Which function? This function that I have written it over here. Okay, so if I'll run this code, you'll just simply see a button. Okay, so if I'll run this code, okay. Okay, now see, there is a button over here, right? But nothing is happening when I'm clicking on this button, right? Okay, let's put some style to the button. So I'm gonna style this button. You can use an external style sheet as well. I'm gonna style it over here. I am going to, excuse me, style the button. So I'm gonna say hash button, and I'm gonna give the background color to the button. Let's say blue, okay. Color white. Okay, and font size, just to increase the size, I'll give it as 36 px, and font weight as bold. Okay, and padding as so top, bottom, and left, right. Right. Okay, now let's see. Has it made any changes? Yes, now my button looks good, right? And now when I'm clicking it, nothing is happening for now, right? Okay, so what I want is when I click this button, this function should be called, okay? And I'm going to do something in this function, okay? For that, you have to write a script. So I'm going to write a script here. So I'm going to say script, okay? And I'm going to say function. I'll write this function. The name of the function is button click, right? And what this function will do, it will just pop up some screen. So I'm going to say I am clicked, right? Okay. So again, what did I do? I created a button. I gave an ID to the button, and When I click on the button, some function is being called. What function? btn click. Okay, what calls that function is this one, on click. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, now you can also, the good practice is to write the script in an external file, in an external JS file. Okay, for you to see the code on one screen, I'm just writing it over here. Okay, so that I don't have to go back and forth between one screen and another screen. But the good practice would be to write the script in an external JS file, to write the CSS in an external JS file. Okay, and that we have seen in the previous modules. So let's see what happens. Now see, if I'll click on this button, it is opening a pop-up window saying I am clicked, right? And I'll just click on OK. Again, I'll click on this button and this will happen, right? So likewise, there are many events that are defined in DOM events in JavaScript, which you can use, okay, in coding. Now, there are different ways you do this programming. Okay, there are different ways you can use the DOM events programming. This is one of them. Okay, let's see some other methods as well. Okay, so in this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make use of get element by ID, and I'm gonna make use of add event listener. And add event listener is the most common way of implementing DOM events. Okay, so this is one way that you can use, which looks very simple. Other way is I'll just write a function. Okay, and not a function, but I'm just gonna take a variable. Okay, and I'm gonna say let this equals to document dot get element by ID, and my ID is btn, right? So get element by ID. Okay, now I want to add an event listener to this button. So I'm gonna say elm dot add event listener. Okay, add event listener. What event? The event is called as click. Okay, that means when the user click on the button. So add event listener click and uh, call the function btn click. Okay, I'm gonna show you different ways that you can achieve this. Okay, so this one is the second way that you can achieve this. Okay, and herein you don't have to write on click here. Okay, now if I'll see herein this on click is being replaced by click. Okay, so I created a button in the body of my HTML page. Okay, I created a function to be called when the button is clicked. Okay, the way I do it is I created this ID, and herein I created a variable to target that button by saying document.getElement by ID. And then I'm going to say variable.addEventListener on the click. So first argument that goes in add event listener is the event that you want to call, and I want to call the click event. And second argument is the name of the function that you want to call, and the name of the function is btn click. Okay, so first argument is the name of the event, second argument is the name of the function. Okay, let's see. Let me save it and let's see here. Now I'll again click on it, and when I am clicking it, that function which says I am clicked is popping up, right? That function is alert. So I'm calling alert I am clicked, right? So that's how the DOM event work. Okay, now another one which saves writing this function is the use of anonymous function. Okay, so now what would I do is instead of writing the function here, okay, I will define the function inside the add event listener itself. Okay, so herein what I will do is I'll first argument is always the event that you want to call, and then I'll say function. Okay, now in this function, okay, so the function that I had defined there, I'm defining it here now, so that I don't have to give a name to a function, and I'll save a lot of code as well. So now I did it as elm.add event listener, click and define the function here itself. This function will no longer be needed. Okay, so click function, and herein I'll write the same code that alert I am clicked. So herein I'll write alert I am clicked. Now, because this is a function, again, you will have an opening and closing curly parentheses, right? And if you'll see, because it has an opening round parentheses, the closing parentheses should also be there. Okay. So again, let me show you what I did. Okay. So I wrote it as elm dot element dot add event listener. Okay. This is how it works. First argument is the one that you want to call. Okay. Second is the function that you want to call. Now herein, what I'm doing is I'm calling the function here itself, okay? And what is it? It's saying alert, I am clicked. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, and then I'm gonna click on this button and it is working in the same way it was working earlier. Okay, so that's how event listener and event handlers are implemented in JavaScript. Okay, now if you will see, okay, the function is called as event handler. Okay, the one that is calling it is called as an event listener. Okay, now let's see some more examples. Okay, so we have seen a click event here. Okay, so instead of click event, let's see what happens if I will hover the mouse over the button. Okay, so I'm gonna say elm dot add event listener, and again the first argument is the event, so I want to call mouse over. Okay, so what I want is when I hover the mouse over, okay, when we'll move the mouse over the button, something should happen. So I'm gonna call a function, okay, and let's see what should I write in the function. So herein, I'm gonna say alert. So herein, I'm gonna say alert, and I'm gonna say mouse over is activated. Okay. So this is one of the event. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna go to that page and see when I am hovering my mouse over here, it is saying mouse over is activated, right? I'll say okay. Now if I'll click on the button, okay, because mouse over is activating all the time, the click and to make both the events happen at one time, we'll have to do some more code, but that's how the mouse over works. Okay, now if I want to like I want something to happen when I will move the mouse out of the buttons area, so I'll say elm.add this listener, and I'm gonna say mouse out. Okay, function, and herein I'm gonna say mouse out is activated. So I'm gonna say mouse out is activated. Okay, let's see. Does anything happen? Okay, it's saying mouse over is activated. Okay, so mouse over is activated. Okay, and mouse out is not working. Okay, let's see why. Okay, yeah, it is activating. When I'm clicking on outside, like first I hover the mouse, right? And when I'm clicking on outside of that region, it is saying mouse out is activated. Okay, so it is working, right? So that's how you handle the events. Now, most of the time you would have seen this, that when you, if there is an image over here and if you hover your mouse over the image zoom, right? It zooms in. So you can use these kind of event mouse over in those kind of events. Okay, Now you can also remove an action. Okay, so the way you're going to remove an action is by saying remove event listener. Okay, so let's see how to remove it. Okay, so here in what I'm going to say is okay. Let's understand it with some simpler example. Okay, so let's write it. So I have created a button already, and in the script I'm gonna say again elm is equals to document dot get element by id, and I'm gonna say the name of the id is btn, right? Okay. Now I'm gonna create one function. Let's say click one. Okay, and I'm just going to write something in the function that console.log, and I'm going to say click one is activated, right? Similarly, I'm going to write one more function, and that says click two, and I'm going to say click two is activated. Okay, now I'm going to add these two functions to the event listener. So I'm going to say elm dot add, okay, element dot add event listener. And what is it? I'm gonna call the event on the click. So I'm gonna say call this function click one, right? And after that, call the function click two. And after that, I want to remove it. Okay, so I want to remove the event listener. So I'm gonna say elm dot remove event listener. What do I want to remove? I want to remove the click one function when the user click on it. Okay, so like this. Let me run this and check. Okay, so let's run this. So remove event listener is the one that you can use. Okay, and let's open the console because I've written it on the console. So when I click it, it says click two is activated. Another time it is saying click two is activated, and it's saying okay, why it is not printing click one is activated, something is wrong. Okay, so first I called click one, then I called click two, and then I removed click one, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, let me see. Okay, let me run this one more time and check what is happening. So here run. I'll click this and let me open the console as well. And it is saying click one is activated. Let's go back to the code, and here I have written it as click one, click two, and then click two. Okay, so let's comment this first. Okay, so what should happen is when I click on the button, click one is activated and click two is activated should be called. So let's see, and I'm gonna click on this button. And it is saying click one is activated and click two is activated. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to remove click two. Okay, so now I will remove the comment from here, and I'm gonna say remove event listener, which event again the click and click two is the function that we are calling here, right? So I'm gonna save it and let's see here, and let me click, and now see only click, it is saying click one is activated. Why? Because we have removed the second click, right? Most of the time this is used depending upon a condition in your code. Okay, maybe when you're designing a game or something like that. Okay, so that's how we remove an event listener. Okay, now let's talk about different events. Let's see some more example of different events. Okay, so first, um, let's see one of the mouse event, okay, and that is on context menu. Okay, now where will you find all these events? Okay, now when you go on Google and you search for these events, you will most of the events you will find it on W3 School. There are many websites, okay, wherein you can search for these events and can implement it in the code according to your requirement. Uh, I find W3 schools be more very easy and easy to follow. So I recommend this website. Now, if you'll see here, there are so many events over here. The one that we used is click. Okay. The one we are going to see now is the context menu. And the explanation is also provided. It says an element is right clicked to open a context menu. Okay, so when you right click, some menu will open. Okay, that is what the context menu is used for. All these events, there are many events. Okay, of course, in your programming, maybe in one program you might not use all of these, but you should at least be familiar with the one that are most common. For example, the mouse events, the mouse down, mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse move, mouse over, etc. Okay, and then again the key events as well. Okay, so let's see some more examples of these, and let's see an example of the context menu. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a div this time. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a div. I'll give an id to this div, and I'm gonna say box. Excuse me. I'm gonna say box to this div, and I'm gonna call a menu that is called as on context menu, and I'm gonna call a function. Okay, now you can also use an add event listener here. Okay, one more thing, if you want to use remove add event listener, it is important that you have to use add event listener to create or call the functions. Okay, okay, this kind of coding will not work there. So I created a div, and I'll style that div. So I will style it as per the id, and my id is box, right? I'll give I'll provide a height, and I'll say 100 pixel, and width again this, and then background color, right? And I'm gonna provide it as purple. Okay, so that's how I have styled my div, and let's see how does it work. I mean, how does it look? So let me run this code. And it looks like this. Okay, now you can align it at the center or wherever you want. Okay, now when we define it in the script, I'm gonna call this function whose name is fun, right? So let's call this function, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say alert right click event or right click event. Okay, let's run this and check. So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna go back there, and here, and when I bring it, I'll just do right click, and as soon as I do the right click, this right click event, it is triggered, right? And that's what we have learned here as well. So here, and if you'll see, the one that I used is on context menu. An element is right clicked to open a context menu. Now if we'll look into the details, if you'll hover your or if you'll click on that link, you will see what does that mean. Okay, there are many subcategories inside that. On click, on context menu, on um, double click, on mouse down, on mouse enter. We're gonna see this. Okay, so we just saw on context menu. On context menu will be triggered when you right click on the mouse, right? Similarly, we have some more events, and let's check something called as key down, okay, or the key event. So do we have a key down here? Okay, here. So what does it say? It says a key is down, or a key press is called when a key is pressed. Key up when the key is pressed. Okay, so up, down, left, right, etc. Those keys. Okay. Let's see. Okay, or any keys on the keyboard. So herein I'll keep the div same, and herein instead of this I'm gonna say window. So you can bind an event to a window as well. Okay, so dot add event listener, and again the first argument is like your key down, right, the event that you want to call, and the next one is the function that you want to call, right? So herein I'll just write check key. Okay, and let's write down this function. So I'm gonna write this function. Uh, and most of the time when you use key events has functions with parameters. Okay, what that mean is, so for example, this function, which is check key, okay, it will have a parameter inside, okay, and that's how the key events work. Okay, so the key events, let me write it here. Key events has function with parameters. Okay, now let's call this. So I'm gonna write it as console.log, and I'm gonna say event.key. Okay, now see what does that do. Okay, so I passed an event inside this function, and this event will call a function, an internal function, which will say whichever key is being pressed. Okay, what that mean is, let's see. Okay. Okay, let me run this. Okay, and now I'm gonna open this, okay, and let me, okay, so now I'm pressing the key E, now I press R, now I press T, now I press B, now I'll press arrow up, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow, right, J, K, L, etc. So whichever key you are pressing. So for example, you're designing a game and you want a player to move forward, backward, left, right, when you press a key. So therein, you're going to use this kind of code, okay? And you know that's how it works. Okay, so this is, again, we are going to call this key down event, use a function name. This function name always contain a argument. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so similarly you can you know, search on these events, search for these events, okay? And let's say I'll click on scroll, okay? So what does it say? The scroll bar is being scrolled, right? Call a function when a div element is being scrolled, okay? So similarly, what you can do is you can click on all the events that you see here, on the list of all the events that you see here, okay, and then practice them, okay. This DOM events, it depends upon practice. The more you practice, more you'll be familiar with it, and more you will be good at it, okay. So all these events that you see, I would suggest you to go over it. This is there in your book as well, but herein you see good examples. You have good examples in your book as well. So click on it and try to execute it and check. Okay, so for example, this one, okay, which says a double click. What I'll do is I'll create a paragraph wherein I'm gonna use this on double click. I'm gonna call a function, okay, which is my function, and something should have been written in that my function. Okay, and when will that function be activated? When you will double click. Okay, so when you'll double click on the paragraph. So for example, let's say I'm gonna take this, or let's see in my div itself, we will do that. Okay, and the name of this is on double click. So let's see, let's go here. So herein I have a div box, and I want that when I double click on that, some function should be activated, right? So I'm gonna get rid of this first. And I'm gonna say document dot get element by get element by ID, and my ID is box, right? Now I'm gonna say ALM dot add event listener. Okay. And I want to call this event. Okay. And I want to activate this event on a function. Okay. So, and I want to activate that event and call this function, right? So let's see. What should I write in this function? So when, let's say the div is clicked, I will say maybe alert div is double clicked. Okay, or just say double clicked. Okay, you can also change the color and all those things, okay? So for example, style dot background color, etc. Something like that, okay? So let's see, let me run this and check whether this worked because, okay, let's see. So I'm gonna run this and okay, this double click is not working and let's see why. Okay, it's not popping any error. Okay, okay. So maybe it this so here and when you write, okay, here in the things are different, okay. For example, when you write it in your button, like in the tag here, it is on click or on double click, but when it comes here, it is this on is generally removed. So let's see. Yeah, and the double click is working now. Okay, so the thing is when you use it here, okay, you say on double click and then call some function. Okay, but when you use with add event listener, this on thing will be removed. It is double click. Okay, so everything, every event handler and event listener that you provide here is written in a different way when you call it in the add event listener. If you search on internet, the equivalent event listeners will be popped for you. Okay, so that's how it works. Now let's say if I want to change the color here. Okay, so instead of displaying something like this, I want to change the color of the div. So I'll say maybe elm dot style dot background color. Okay, background color. And I'm going to give a color as, let's say, green. Okay, and it is giving me an error. See? Maybe because it is div. So elm.style.background color and okay. Oh, what happened? Okay, let me just see what. Okay, so this is not changing its color, so maybe because of this. So I said elm.style. Elm is my div, okay, which I have given as a height and width and some background color. The initial color is purple and I want to change it to green. So I said it as elm.style.background color is equals to green when I'll double click on the div, right? So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna run it. And let's see if that works. So I have a box over here, so I'm gonna double click on it and see the color is being changed, right? So that's how the DOM events work. Okay, we're gonna see more into DOM events, uh, especially handling the forms and all in the next week, and also the timers. Now again, other than this, okay, what I would suggest, as I have suggested already, that go through the W3 schools and the chapters in your book and practice the events that is being mentioned over here. Okay. Now, there is also one concept that is called as event bubbling and event capturing. Okay. In event bubbling, event start as the most specific element and then flows upward toward the least specific element. For example, let's understand it with an example. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep this box same, or let's see. Um, okay, so I'm gonna remove this and let's see. Okay, and I'm gonna remove the style sheet as well. So now my code looks like this. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna create the in the body, I'm going to just create the div first. I'm going to say div id equals 2, and I'm just going to write it as my div. Okay, so I created a div, and inside that div, I am creating a button. So I'll create a button in this. So I'm going to say button id equals 2, and I'm going to write it as btn. Okay, and then I'm going to say, let's say click me. Okay, that's what I wrote it inside the button. Now let's style it. So I'm gonna style it as, let me style the body just to demonstrate it well. So I'm gonna do it like this. Padding, I'm gonna provide it as 100 pixel. Then background color, I'm gonna provide it as, let's say, corn silk. And now I'm gonna target the div. So I'm gonna say hash my div, right? And I'm gonna again put some padding to it. Let's say 50 pixel. And I'm gonna say background color is, for this, it is blue. And then I am going to use a button. Okay, so button's ID is this. And let's put some padding to it. So padding is, let's say, 20 pixel. And background color, I'm gonna put a color as, let's say, green yellow. I like this color very much. And color equals to red. Okay, that's the color of the font. Okay, the equals to doesn't work here, so this. And then I'm gonna provide some font size, and I'm gonna say 20 pixel, and this one font weight. Okay, and I'm gonna say bold. Okay, so I created a div tag, something like this. Okay, and let's run this and check. So I'm gonna run this. Okay, and see, it looks like this, right? So what does an event bubbling means? Okay, event bubbling means um, okay, uh, clicking the most significant, most specific one first, and then displaying the others. Okay, what that means is, when I click it, the hierarchy will be different. Okay, first maybe the button will click, then the div will be clicked, or div will be activated, and then the body will be activated. Okay, let's see how. Okay, so when you click the button, the click event occurs in the following order. The first one will be the button, then the div with the id container, then body, then html, and then document. Okay, let's see how we can implement that. Okay, so I'm going to write a script for this one. So I'm going to come here and let's write a script to show that. So I'm going to write a script here. Okay, and I'm going to say let d equals to document dot get element by id, and I'm going to target my div first. I'm going to also create, excuse me, one more document dot get element by id, and I'm gonna say btn. So let's see my div and btn. So I have targeted one div and one button through this. Okay, now I'm gonna add the event listener to them. Okay, so I'm gonna say button dot add event listener. Okay, and I'm gonna say a click event and a button click function. Okay, and I'm going to write that function too. Similarly, I'm going to add event listener to the button, and again I'm going to call the click, and I'm going to say I'm going to call div clicked. Okay, now let's define these functions. I'm going to say function, and I'm going to say btn clicked, and I'm going to say console dot log, and I'm gonna say btn clicked. Okay, similarly function div clicked, and I'm gonna say console dot log div clicked, right? And one more function for calling when I click the body of the html page. Okay, so I'm gonna say body clicked. Okay, and I'm gonna say console body clicked, right? Okay, let me see, button clicked, div clicked, and body clicked, and I have to call this event listener as well. So I'm gonna to call this function body click, I'm gonna say document dot. So if you want to add something to the body of your page, you're gonna say document dot body dot add event listener, and then on the click of it, and then you're gonna say body clicked, right? Call this function. Okay, let's run this. Okay. So if you'll see this, body is the parent of the div, div is the parent of the button, right? So button is the child of div and div is the child of the body. Okay, let's run this and check. Okay, now let me open the console. Button click is not defined. Okay, 37, 36. Let's see, 37, we have this. And button, okay, okay, so here I did not write the function name proper. So this is button click. Okay, let's see. Div clicked is not defined. And again, my function name was div clicked. And herein I use a lowercase c. Okay, let's see. Not establish connection. Okay. Now let's see. So I'm gonna just open the console again. Okay. And because I clicked on the body, it is saying body click. Now I'll click on the button It is saying button clicked, that is child is clicked first, then it's parent, and then it's body. Okay, this is called as bubbling. The hierarchy is child first, then parent, and then the other parent. Okay, again, see, if I'll click just a body, okay, it says the body clicked. Okay, if I'll click the div, it will the child and the parent. The body is the parent of div, right? And if I'll click the button, it will say the button clicked first, then div, and then the body. Okay, this is called as bubbling. Okay, you can stop propagating it using a stop propagation method as well. Okay, so for example, if I want to stop clicking the button, what I would say here is herein, where I wrote button clicked, I'm gonna say event. So first I'll just pass an event over here. Okay, and I'm gonna say event dot stop propagation. Okay, now whatever you are learning here, it has a practical application. Okay, when we'll design projects, maybe after a week we'll start designing the project, and then you will realize how to make use of, what is the importance of these, and um, how to implement this according to your requirement. Okay, so let's see what happens, what is the effect of this one. So I'm going to go back to here. Okay, and first I'll click on body, and this I click on div, it is saying this, and when I click on button, now the propagation is stopped. Earlier when I was clicking on button, it was printing as button, div, and then the body. Okay, now because I wrote in the code event.stop propagation, so that propagation has been stopped. Okay, and again, uh, if you want to, the bubbling, if you want to prevent the default, okay, that means to prevent from single click and enable double click. Okay, therein you can use such kind of concepts as well. So for example, let's see an example. Okay, I hope you understood what is a bubbling and capturing. Event bubbling and event capturing means, capturing is opposite of event bubbling. Okay, so in bubbling it's like child, then parent, and that parent. In the other way, like in the capturing, it's the other way, like parent, then child, then child. Okay, now let's see what does it mean by, like, how do you stop propagating the default. Okay, so let's see, to prevent from a single click and enable double click, maybe. Okay, not propagation but prevent an event. So let's see how to prevent an event here. Okay, so let's get rid of this one, this code. And I'm going to make use of an anchor tag to demonstrate that. Okay, so in the body, I'm going to create an anchor tag. Okay, and I'm going to say href equals to, and let's say http, okay, https dot google.com, and I'm going to provide an ID to this. I'm going to say ID equals to anchor. And I'm going to say, let's say click me, right? Okay, so in the script, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take let create a variable equals to document dot get element by ID, and my ID is anchor, right? Okay, and I'm going to add an event listener to this one. So add event listener, and I'm going to say click. Okay, create a function and pass an event into it. Okay, so I'm gonna pass an event, let's say E. Now it's gonna say console.log. Okay, and I'm gonna write link clicked. Okay, or you can also write maybe alert. Okay, let's see first what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna run this code. Open with live server. Okay, it's this thing is created, and when I'll click on it, the Google is opened, right? Okay, so when I click on this, again, the Google will be opened, right? And it is also letting me go back. Okay, now if I want to stop that behavior, okay, it's normal behavior is the link tag works like if you click on that, some page, some web page will open, right? Some target web page will open. If we'll click on the link, that is its default behavior. And if I want to stop that default behavior, what I would do is herein, I'll say stop this behavior. So call this argument that you provide inside the function e dot prevent default. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, and herein, when I click on it, see the default behavior is not being called. Okay, it is letting me click, but it's not letting me go on the website, right? So that's how you can prevent a default behavior. Okay, now that's all about the DOM events. Okay, how to make the pages dynamic. There's more into it, which we are going to continue in the next week. Okay, but what I want you to do is it needs a lot of practice. Okay, to um, completely understand the implementation of this kind of programming. Okay, for that, as I have shown you earlier as well, during the beginning of this lecture, that go through the tutorials and write the examples, code the examples, execute and check. Okay, that will give you a good practice. Okay, and with that, I'm going to conclude this session. Please feel free to reach out to me if you are stuck and if you need help in understanding any of the concepts that I have explained in this video. Thank you and happy coding.